Hey everybody, welcome back to my kitchen. I'm Ken, and today I want to show you an absolutely fantastically simple recipe for homemade bread. It's a very basic Greek style recipe. Just a few ingredients: all-purpose flour, a little bit of yeast, a little bit of salt, a little bit of sugar for the yeast, olive oil, and some water. That's it. And it's just good old-fashioned goodness. So to start us off, I'll get right to this. This recipe will break down into three parts. First part is the mixing of all of our ingredients. The second part is the proofing, because it's going to have to rise a little bit. And lastly, the baking. So to get the show on the road, what I'm going to do is get maybe half a cup of water, quarter cup of water, and pop that in your microwave and just let that go for a few seconds. You want to get it up to temperature so that way our yeast will activate. So once that's done, we can work with adding it to our actual mix. So for this recipe, we're going to start off with 500 grams of AP flour. So now that our flour has been put into our bowl, I'm going to grab my water here for my yeast, which is warmed up nicely. So for this recipe, I'm using 1 packet of dry active yeast, and that will go in there, along with a little bit of sugar to feed our yeast and get that going. And let me just grab a spoon and get that kind of stirring around and going. And there it is. See how it's turning all kind of opaque or murky? That's our yeast coming alive. Yeah, this smells like bread. That is fantastic. So let me leave that there. The next part of this recipe is actually incorporating a little bit of salt into our flour. It doesn't need much at all. I'm also going to take a quarter cup of Greek extra virgin olive oil that's going to go into this. And for the moisture factor, there is no real amount of water for this. The lady in Greece that showed me how to do this recipe broke it down into, what the temperature outside is versus the inside versus humidity versus altitude, yada. Basically what you're going to do is we're going to bring this into a tacky, not sticky, tacky ball. So now I'm going to grab a little bit of water, and you're going to add this slowly to our flour. So we're going to do it in maybe half cup or so increments. I'm going to take my yeast now, and it's coming along fantastic. I love the smell of yeast. So our yeast is all going to go in there. Perfect. Get that out of the way. And the best tools in the kitchen. So what we're going to do is very simply start mixing this up. There's nothing else. There's no other secret to this. And as the flour will absorb the water and the moisture will go down, you just keep adding. And people, my friends, if I can do this, you can do this too. Believe me, there's nothing complicated about this. It's not really rocket science. Just little by little. You could always add more water, but you can't take out if you put too much in. All right, so now our bread is ready to be worked on our board. It's still sticky and tacky, so we're going to add some flour now onto our board. Let me move this here, and let me just grab this real quick. You don't need a ton of flour. You just need enough to kind of, move this out of the way, to kind of make it all kind of, let your dough work itself in. And you just work it in with your knuckles, and that's the way they did it. The truth is, bread making or homemade bread making is a dying art. And the reason it's a dying art, I guess it's simpler to go buy a loaf of bread at the local bakery than it is to actually make it at home. So we just keep working this. And it's a pretty good workout as well. So I think my dough is pretty much ready to be proofed. Just leave that like that, and that's awesome. Looking really good. Just gonna rinse off my hands and we'll go to the next step, which is setting up our proofing bowl. All right, so now clean our hands, thanks to the magic of editing. Next part is I'm gonna find a fairly decent sized proofing bowl. And the trick to this is twofold. Number one, take a little bit of olive oil that you have left over. That will work in there. And number two, take your loaf and rinse off or spread around the olive oil. So that way, while your bread is actually in there proofing, it won't be sticking to the sides. So now, what we're going to do for this, very simply, we're going to leave it alone. I'm going to take some cling wrap and just cover up the top and leave it alone for about an hour in a dry place that's warm. And that's the key to this. You need someplace fairly warm. A good place would be on top of your refrigerator if you're going to do this. And let that go and forget about it. And I'll see you guys here in about an hour or so, and we'll take it from there. All right, so now our bread is proofed, and look who it is here. For those of you that don't know him, this is my BFF, Mitzo. He's always around, and he's one of my biggest fans. I mean, he'll eat anything I make, believe me. So, bread is finished proofing. It's actually more than doubled its size, and I will tell you, this has been proofing now for going on to about an hour and a half or so. And it's absolutely fantastic. It actually smells exactly the way it's supposed to smell. So what I like to do is, instead of putting it in a loaf pan, I like to bake this off the way they do in Greece in terms of the flat oven, or I flat bake this. And for this, I use a cookie sheet lined with parchment paper. Now, having said that, at this point, we're going to preheat our oven 375 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 180 degrees Celsius. Again, once that's done and out of the way, one less thing to worry about. The next trick I'm going to share with you. First things first, I'm going to take just a little bit of flour and put it on my cutting board or my work surface, or whatever surface it is you're working on. That's the first thing. You're going to take some flour and you're going to place them on your hands as well. And you're going to kind of beat your bread down. This is amazing. This is exactly what we want. This is absolutely beautiful. And very simply, you're not going to do a whole lot to this. You're going to very basically just sprinkle a little bit more flour on this. And you want to actually start folding this into itself and making a little loaf. And that's basically what we're doing. I'm a little distracted because I've got Mitzo under here, but it's all good. So we're going to form this into like a nice loaf, typical like this. And what I'm going to do as well, very sparingly, put a little bit on my pan, just like that. Perfect. And I'm going to take my loaf and I'm going to place it on my pan. Nothing to this at all. And this is where you can make it pretty. You can make it any way you want. I like a typical kind of Greek style loaf. These are the misotila, as we say in Greece, or about half a kilo in terms of the loaf size. So that's pretty much ready to go. I'm also going to take some sesame seeds and I'm going to just sprinkle them on. This is totally optional, totally up to you at this point. I'm also going to take a very sharp knife And what you're going to do in terms of making this a little bit artisanal is just cut diagonal slits through your bread. You can make maybe 3, I think would work well for a loaf like this. Just like that. Nothing complicated, nothing fancy. That's perfect. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this into my 375-degree oven for 1 hour, give or take. Keep an eye on it. You want that nice golden brown color to it. And once you have it, your bread is ready. So keep an eye on it around the 50-minute mark, give or take. Keep checking on it. And once you get that nice golden brown, you're good to go. So it's been about an hour and 5 minutes now. And our bread just beeped. And check it out, check it out. Look at this. It's absolutely done. It's perfect. Absolutely perfect. Let me just move this here out of the way because it's still like scorching hot. Like this is actually pretty exciting. Look how beautiful this looks. Look how absolutely gorgeous this looks. It's actually done. It's perfectly done actually. Now, chances are I won't be able to touch this, but I'll work with it like this. And I want to show you, I just want to cut a little piece to try. And again, a serrated knife. Look at that. Oh my gosh. Absolutely perfect. Gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. It doesn't get much better than this. And I cut one more slice. The bread, the crust is super crunchy. The inside is done like it's perfect, absolutely perfect. Oh. And this, in Greek tradition, is the corner piece. And traditionally they say, well, that's the piece that you get from your mother-in-law, which means that she really, really loves you. So I'll take my chances with this one. But here's the thing. It's the only thing that this is missing is some butter. Now look at the bottom. Look how beautiful that is. Look how the bottom is absolutely done perfectly. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. This needs butter. Where is, oh, here's my butter. Excellent. Take some butter, because you can't have fresh bread without butter. But I am going to take a bite to kind of taste this, to see how it is without the butter. Fantastic. This is like the bread from the bakeries in Greece. It tastes literally exactly like that. Slather this with some butter. Oh my God. Absolutely perfect. This is a meal unto itself. So my friends, this is my Greek style homemade bread. Beautifully simple. And if I can do this, you guys can do this too. I'm certainly no baker. This recipe is foolproof. Just keep your quantities and your portions and your ingredients the way we discussed earlier. Bake it off at 375. Let it proof for about an hour to an hour and a half. And you are going to get the most amazing bread you've ever had. Guaranteed. So That's it for me and this episode. Thank you very much for watching. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and feel free to check out some of my other videos. And until next time, I'm Ken. Thank you very much for watching. Bye for now.